Hello, my name is Carl Cook, and in this video I'd like to show you how to use FusionData 001, and this is the third so far in a series of videos in a playlist. The first video covers installing FusionData. The second video is a real short one for activating the Intellect server that runs underneath the Fusion system. And in this video we will take a look at creating some downloaders and managing those and some of the capabilities of FusionData. So FusionData is one of a suite of products that are being assembled for the Fusion line of financial analytics. So you go to the Start menu and you select FusionData, and up pops a login dialog and the name of the computer you're on, because Intellect is a multi-user system. So in the Fusion, certainly in the Enterprise and Ultimate releases, you will have a multi-user system that you need to log into. And to log in, you just use credentials of capital ADMIN, admin, had no password. Just hit enter and you're logged in. Now FusionData sits on top of the Intellect server, which is running as a service in the background. And the Intellect server is a distributed multiprocessing, very capable, very broad type of analytic engine, and it does more than analytics. It does production reporting and all sorts of different things. But so FusionData is basically an application. In itself doesn't do anything, actually. Everything's done down inside the Intellect server. This just provides you basically like a viewport into the Intellect server. And so we've got the capabilities of creating downloaders and managing those. And then we also have an assistance tab, which has the help documentation. And we encourage you to actually read it, especially the getting started and using FusionData books in here. They're brief, short stories, plot's a little thin, but very, very exciting, I assure you. But please do take a look at least getting started and using FusionData. The next group box over here is shows that we have a good connection and a heartbeat to the Intellect server. The Intellect server is used in commercial and industrial applications and has continuity checking, and that's just exactly what this does. It just says you've connected to the Intellect server, connection's good, and you've got a heartbeat that's ticking off every second, showing that your connection is live and active. So on the home toolbar, there are other capabilities that are not shown here yet that we're working on. But basically you can create downloaders and you can manage downloaders. So to create a downloader in the upper levels of FusionData, you are presented what we call a designer dialog, which allows you to design solutions, some of which can be extremely simple, some of them can be a little more sophisticated. And as we move into the Fusion Core application, which is going to be the central application for Fusion, you'll have many, many more capabilities that are already implemented within Intellect. So you basically got three panes to this window. The first one is a tree that you can use for creating solutions. And we have different capabilities, such as getting text file data off of disk, getting Excel data that uses actually a relational database query to a table-like structure within an Excel workbook, getting historian data, because Intellect comes and Fusion comes with its own high-speed data historian. It's if people remember back, the tick historian. That's basically what this is, and it'll handle up to 50,000 transactions per second. Writing to it, and about 25,000 transactions per second extracting data out of the historian while it's processing inbound. And it's an integral part of most every task and operation within Intellect because it could be used for storing away intermediate results and data. We can get data from SQL Server and Oracle, and then there's something called Get Data DLT. DLT stands for Data Load Transform. And if you're familiar with profit and patterns, for example, you can access ticker data, securities data, and be able to build indicators. So you can get data from multiple data sources simultaneously, synchronize them, put them all together in one data set, and then apply cleansing filters, outliers, inliers, moving averages, logs, ratios, etc., various indicators to pre-process the data. And then at that point you stop and save that data handling template of access and transforming or indicator building, then you can actually run it standalone here to go get the data and load and transform it, and then broadcast it to other tasks down the line. Later on, we'll be using this quite a bit. In industrial applications, we use it a lot, and I'm sure we will here, because that way you can build one set of indicators for a ticker and run multiple instances of that simultaneously online, or you can switch context and take the same transforms indicators that you've built and use them on other ticker data and run those in parallel online, and it's all very handy. You can get Metastock data, and then we can get various financial end-of-day feeds a couple of different ways. So we have Yahoo, we have IEX, we have Alpha Vantage, and Tinggo. Tinggo I like, Yahoo I like, actually. Not that Yahoo data is all necessarily the best and accurate, but so you can get one ticker at a time from Yahoo. That's basically what this guy does. And he broadcasts it to other downstream tasks. Or you can get data from Yahoo, multiple tickers at the same time, or sequentially querying Yahoo, and then write that to multiple files at the same time onto disk into a folder. So you could get 10, 20, 30, 500 tickers. It'll step through each one of those and getting the data and putting it into a text file in a folder, and then a different text file for a different ticker, and a different text file for a different ticker in the same folder. So this basically is an automation which enables you to do lots of tickers into lots of files. So this is probably what you'll use the most. Same concept here with IEX. Get one ticker, broadcast it out to other sources or destinations and processes, or get a bunch of tickers and do it to a file. Get one ticker from Alpha Vantage and broadcast it to other tasks, or go get many tickers and write them to files. Same with Tinggo. Get one ticker, get many tickers, write them to many files. And we also have download CSV data, which enables you to pull down just text files off of websites such as government data produced by various government agencies. Then we also have data destinations. Right now we're only showing 3. There's also a 4th, which I'll mention. So one is to put something to a text file, or put something to a SQL server, or put something to Oracle. So if you wanted, we could get one ticker from Yahoo and write it to one file. So basically, to compose solutions, you just drag and drop these guys onto this center workspace. As you can see, I clicked off of those to deselect them, and then now I can just click and drag, and I draw an arrow that says I'm going to get data from Yahoo for a ticker, and I'm going to go put it into a text file someplace. That's simple enough. But this is pretty fancy in the sense that, well, I also want to go put it maybe in a SQL server. Well, let me do that. I'm going to go put it in SQL Server. I'm going to put it in Oracle. And so you could draw actually many arrows. And you could actually write it to multiple data destinations at the same time. And then later as we get into putting more pre-processing in here, perhaps, and also in Fusion Core, then you can compose very sophisticated solutions. So if we wanted, we could save this guy to the Intellect server just by clicking the Save button and just say Yahoo ticker to destinations. And hit enter twice. You could enter a description, but it's not really necessary. And then the next button on the toolbar is to, well, let's say the last one is for relaying out, and then makes everything look spiffy. And then this button is to clear the workspace. So really what you'll be using is something like Yahoo to file, which actually is kind of like the last thing we built, only it does lots of tickers to lots of files. The third region of the window enables you to click on one of these guys and set his properties, and they have lots of properties. You can do that here, or you can do it over in the Manage Downloading section. I kind of like to draw solutions here, kind of ignore this stuff over here for now. And let me save this guy. Yahoo to files. Let's go Yahoo tickers. Doesn't matter what the name is. Whatever lights your lighthouse. So we don't need a description. Just save it. All right. So that's kind of the concept here. Go grab stuff, put it onto a drafting board, link things together. This guy doesn't need to go anywhere because he's got basically those tasks inside of him that takes data from Yahoo and puts it to text files. So the next guy is managing downloading. Now this gives you more of an operational perspective. These guys can be started and stopped and have logging levels set, and you can save changes that you've made here. And you can, this green plus is something that you can use to structure these tasks that you've created into a hierarchy. So if I click on server and I click on this guy and say I'm going to put all my stock stuff, you can organize them in any way that you want. I've got this thing that's called a context, and I can drag and drop these guys under stocks, and that allows me to structure things. So let's say, for example, let's say I want to create another one that's bonds. I'm just playing around here. Then one of the things I can do while I'm over here, if I don't want to go over and recreate things, like, you know, this guy, let's say, for example, I can go and copy that. And how many copies of this guy do you want? I could say 2, and it will create 2 more. And I can drag and drop those, let's say, under bonds. And so now I've got, I don't have to go back and create more downloaders. I can copy the ones that I've created before. And that'll come in handy when some of these things that you create become quite complex. You can just copy them and apply different tickers, and away you go. So we're going to play mostly with this Yahoo stocks, Yahoo to file guy, and so that you can get familiar with what you need to do to get started. So there's a bunch of properties. The descriptive info is just kind of overhead. It talks about what kind of task this is within Intellect, what it does, what its intent, what category is it in, what's its name, and There's longer names and short names. And then some technical things about the process, like how many people are listening to this guy. So if, like for example, this guy, see, he's got 4 things listening. There's these 3 guys are listening to this guy, plus the parent container that's holding these objects is listening for a total of 4. So there's 4 things listening to this guy. So over here we've got subscriber count, only 1, because it's not talking to anybody else, and it's just being listened to by its parent container. So the things that we're really interested in are some of these settings. So basically we're going to get a set of tickers. So Apple, Bank of America, 3M, used to work for them. Let's say we're going to go get 3 tickers. I'm not sure how many you can put in there, but we've tested to 500. And if you want, you could separate, have multiples of these, like I showed you, that are running with multiple sets of tickers. But this has properties about what you're going to do and where you're going to do it. So let's say we're going to get data for Apple, Bank of America, and 3M, and we want it to write data to a file folder on the C drive. And that data one is kind of taken. Let's make a new folder here. Videos data. And then there I'm going to make a new folder, which is Yahoo Stocks. So I'm going to use that. So it's going to put the data into different files in this folder. And every time you click on a property, look right here. It's got some information about it. So I want it to append from last, and what that means is when I download data and I have all these files, the next time it goes to download, it's going to go look for each ticker. What is the last date in the file? Then it's going to go query for data that will come after that and keep appending data. That's useful for reducing bandwidth in this case, but some data sources will charge you for the number of bits or bytes that you're downloading, transactions, messages they call them in some cases. And so you don't want to re-download the entire data set every day. Plus you might get revisions that you weren't aware of and cause your signals to change and things like that. So what we do is all the files will be appended to from the last date timestamp that's in there. And the next property is append ticker, which you want to be true, because what that does is when it goes and gets data, let's say for a stock, and it's got open, high, low, close, adjusted open, high, low, close, volume, adjusted volume, etc., it will stick the ticker name in front of the column name. So then you'll have Apple _ open, Apple _ high, etc. And that way each column, generally speaking, within Fusion will be unique. So it'll be ticker open, for example. And then you can set the delimiter. Right now the default's to comma delimited. We'll skip over the date times for the moment. We have something called exchange time zone and exchange closing time. And even though this is getting end of day data, why do we have that? Well, that's so that it's actually the end of day data is time stamped by time of day, presuming that the data is coming at the end of the day for that exchange. That way you can have the proper timestamps on data that maybe is in Frankfurt versus New York versus Chicago versus Tokyo as the Earth spins. And you can take advantage of the sequence of the data rather than just going like, oh, this is all data for, April 2nd, 2020. And, well, but in fact, it might be a little bit different than that. I mean, at one timestamp, different places around the world. So they aren't all at the same time. And so we enable you to approximate it by setting the time zone of the exchange, which is using the global standard, ISO standard, I believe, time zone names, and the closing time for the exchange. And that gives you kind of an approximate number for what time that particular value was created for end of day data. So it almost turns end of day into sort of approximate intraday. Here you could write new, or you can append. We'll set to append because there's a little rule behind the scenes that's kind of important. What the extension of the file is. We talked about the folder. We talked about the tickers. Now we have the start and end date time. Now, even though we're appending to files, so if we were to go push start on this, it's going to go look for the ending date of the file on the disk, and it's going to go like, oh, there's no file. So it'll actually internally switch to, I'm going to write a new file using all the data that you queried for using this end date timestamps. Now this is based on these times are based on RFC 3339 or an ISO 8601 standard timestamps, because they work everywhere in the world consistently, and they're sortable, and they're somewhat interpretable, easily interpretable in terms of this is year, month, day, always. And that gets us around all the international different versions. Is it month, day, year? Is it day, month, year? Is it no, year, month, day with dashes. T is for time. And then hour, minute, second, and then we can go down to, I think, nanoseconds. and then this is the time shift from Zulu, or UTC, Greenwich Mean. 3 different names for that. So what you can do is say, I want to get data starting, let's say in 2019, January 1st, and the days and months are always double digit, and we don't care about this. We can make this 0, 0, 0, 0, make this 0, 0, and I think we can take that off. Added it on anyway. Convert it from 0, 0. Okay, and then went to 1231. Interesting. Oh, that's because of the difference with Zulu. So January 1st, 2019. Okay. And then we want it up to current time. And so that'll give us a little bit more than a year's worth of data. And then if we were to start this by pushing the go button, we have a couple more settings we want to do before we do that. But if we were to do that, it would go and get the data. It would see that, oh, I want to append from last. Oh, there's no text files. So I'm going to create new text files, and I'm going to go between these dates. Then after that, then going forward, it will go from the last row in the file to now to query and write the data and append it onto the text file. So that's all. That'll all work just naturally. Now, this is how you get this thing to run on a timer or time of day. So one of the things, we have different log levels, so we'll put it to debug, and then when I put it to debug, you'll see that's what this part down here is for. is that you will see messages showing up here. And then run daily at time. We can set that to true. And run on timer, which means it's going to check every 60,000 milliseconds, which is every minute. It's going to check every minute to see whether or not it's time to run. And then if we want to run it at a particular time of day, we can say, I want this to run at 5 p.m. my time, which is 17 o'clock. And I want the timer to fire. And so every minute, based on this timer enabled, it's going to check to see whether or not it's supposed to run daily at time, and if it is, then at what time of day, 5 o'clock, is it 5 o'clock yet? If it is, then it'll start the process of downloading the tickers and writing to disk. That way you can just let it run forever. So I'm going to hit the save button, and I'm going to save this. Now, this is an important part. You can see down here where it's saying saving. What it does when it's saving is it actually, there's a database behind the scenes that keeps track of all the configuration of the Intellect system. And each time you save, it will back up that database and then write a new one. And that way you'll have older copies of your Intellect configuration stored on disk in a date timestamp sequential stamping, so that if you ever need to go back to a prior database, there will be a procedure for doing that. It's not very hard. Basically, it means stopping the Intellect server, renaming a file, and then starting the Intellect server again. Now, if I were to run this, push the go button, I do believe that actually not much will happen, because it's waiting for this timer to fire, and then it won't do anything until 5 p.m. my time, which is in 8 minutes. I can right click and clear this out too. Let's see, debug. So I'm going to stop it, start it. Yeah. So it says it's executing one task, but the task is just basically sitting here idling, checking to see whether or not it's time to execute. Well, I don't have any data. I want to get the data now. I don't want to wait till 5 o'clock. So what do I do to push this guy to get him going the time I want? Run daily at time at true, run on timer false, which says don't fire every minute going to get data, and don't wait until 5 o'clock. And that's all it takes, is just setting those two guys. And then now if I hit start button, he's going off to get Apple, Bank of America, 3M, 3 of 3 done. Bravo. Now we saved it in the state where this was set run daily at time. So when you save the Intellect system with this button, it commits it to a database. And then if you were to reboot your computer, it will reload that database, the Intellect service will start up, it will reload that database, and it'll start these tasks running, so that you don't have to do anything. If you have your Intellect system configured and you need to reboot your computer, just reboot it. And then it'll come back and it'll start up all the tasks, and it'll start doing its downloading again without you having to do a thing. Even with these windows closed. Because when you close this guy out, everything's still running in the background. Okay, so let's see, where did we go to get let's see, C and data, video data, videos data, Yahoo stocks. Here's our 3 files. If I will open Apple, I should have an open with, shouldn't I? Open with. Sometimes Microsoft's a mystery. Open a notepad. So you can see that it appended the apple, such as I requested, which is right here. Append ticker to the column names. So I did that. And then here's the timestamps. And these are, we recorded all in Zulu time, or Greenwich Mean Time, or officially Universal Coordinated Time, which is UTC, Universal Time Coordinated. So that you can synchronize the data and it'll get the proper lead lags across the multiple exchanges around the world. And it was written in at 2100 Zulu, and all this data is recorded there. So let's see, it should start January 2nd, 2019. The first was a holiday. And then we're right up to the 14th. We didn't get the data yet for today. This is Monday the 17th. 14th is Friday's data. So Yahoo had not delivered that to us yet at 4:56 p.m. Pacific time. And so it wrote that to disk. And now, if we run daily at time and run on timer, and let's just stop and start it and cycle, commit those guys. He's executing one task. At 5 o'clock, I don't know if we'll wait around for 3 minutes. Let me clear this off. At 5 o'clock, he'll go ahead and run. And it's a similar, almost everything's identical for Yahoo, IEX, Alpha Vantage, and Tinggo. Some of those other guys require, there's a key, big long series of letters and numbers. There'll be a, in the settings area, there'll be a place for that. Let's go take a look. Easy enough. Let's go, I think Tinggo has that. Folder, oh yes, token. So if you want to use Tinggo, you have to go create an account on Tinggo. And they'll issue you a token, and then you can put that token in here, and so that Tinggo knows that it's you calling for data. There's also ability in some of these, and let's see, Tinggo. I don't know about Alpha Vantage. I can put it all on here and just play around with them. Let's see, IEX, ticker token. No, there's no throttle. Alpha Vantage. No throttle. So I guess it's Tinggo. You can throttle the calls so that you don't get outside the free zone for them, for example. So if you were to make lots of calls simultaneously, just to Tinggo, you can actually get into a state where you have to pay, or you have to pay more, I think, based on messages. I don't recall which ones are based on messages, but a number of these are based on not only the number of calls per minute, but also the number of messages that you're passing. So you may be making one call, but you've got like lots of messages for data. And so that allows you here to throttle the calls, and that's true by default. It slows down the process, but it will perhaps save you some money. And if you don't want to throttle them, I'll just set it to false, and it'll just go quickly to go get the data. One of the other ones is get CSV data. That's pretty straightforward, except for you need to know a little bit about the file. So there's a comma delimited string of field labels to apply, because we have no idea what's in the file. It may be fundamental data, it may be governmental data, it may be the price of tea in China. Who knows what it is? And how many leading rows in the file to trim off, what the row terminating character is, because some files will just have carriage return, some will just have line feed, some will have carriage return and line feed, so you might have to do some experimentation with that. and then associate it with what ticker and whether or not to append that to the columns, which probably its default's true. That way you can make the columns at least somewhat unique. And then this is the URL, basically the internet address for getting that off the web. So those are some of the capabilities. Maybe enough to get started. We'll make more videos that will illustrate the process. Oh, look, over here, it's 5 o'clock, 5:01. The timer tripped. It's within the accuracy of 1 minute. I could make that check faster if I wanted, if you wanted to make sure that it occurred within a particular minute. But that's usually pretty good. You don't have to even pay attention to this anymore, because when I close this guy, it's still running in the background and will forever until you go in and start up FusionData and stop it. Just pull it up, log in, go to manage downloading. I think I covered all the features. Yep. And if I ever want to stop it, I just hit the stop button. The log level, low, medium, high, debug. I think in most cases you can run most of your processes with debug level logging, because it'll pop up all the little messages down here, or perhaps high level. And it's up to the developer of this component to set what information is brought back based on the log level. These two tasks you don't have to worry about. They're just utility tasks that run in the Intellect server. They're created by default. One is the possibility of sending emails. So it might enable the app to like push notifications to you by email, or and the logging task is just taking care of all the logging that's going on within the server. And in some of the more advanced videos, we'll get into some of the technical details of the behind-the-scenes look of how do I change databases and how do I change logging to files, and where are the logs, and where's the historian data, and how do I manage that, etc. So this is the end of this video. I thank you very much for your time. Please like or comment, and we'll be on top of the comments and be responding back to you. And also, if you have any questions, you can send an email to info@biocompsystems.com. If you're using the product and have any problems, send an email to support@biocompsystems.com, because that is where it'll automatically open a ticket and we put it through a process to solve whatever challenges you might be meeting. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and have a great day.